Issue 74. Why are the heroes just standing there and letting Clutch say his boring dialogue? They don't respect him. He talks about simplicity, but if it was really keeping it simple, they just run at each other to fight right away. It's cool seeing Vector use his Sonic Wave attack, but he only gets to be cool for one panel here before he gets made to stop. At least I'm getting made to stop never happened before in this series. None of the robots he did that to thought to do that because they were even dumber than these guys. As usual, I can't stand the lame rhyming that Tumble does. It's cute to see Amy say she matches someone who's just got a tiny little hammer. That's friendly of her. Usually in this comic, the emphasis isn't on her being friendly and caring like in the recent games. I shouldn't have to compliment this, but it's good that she's fighting with no issue instead of being scared running away like the last time Clutch saw her. Of course they're not going to address that. Tails flies, and then Clutch almost shoots him with a conveniently badly aimed, inexplicably kid-friendly fireball gun that he could have easily not missed with, that he was too stupid to have all of the previous times he showed up. Yeah, I just realized, why didn't he have a gun when he last saw her? He might have won then. So why did he buy a fireball gun instead of a real gun? It'd only be able to work with either magic or advanced technology, either of which would make it a lot more expensive and hard to get. Why does Vector just stand still and ask the bad guys if they're ready to give up? There's still 2 security guards left. I have to assume Vector was saying this to take mercy on them just because they're organic. The Chaotix probably could have done even better in this fight considering their fighting abilities in the games. Vector used Fire Breath before, but at least it's got the excuse that their best attacks like the shurikens are lethal ones. They were fine with beating up Eggman, but they didn't feel like killing him, so that proves they'd be the type to hold back against people. I don't know why Espio didn't go invisible though. Just run out of sight in a second with his speed to not be seen disappearing, and then have an easier time. Charmy should be punching Clutch. He can taunt him after that. It tries to make Clutch look intimidating, but if he was really intimidating, he would have shot one of the heroes while they were talking. Well, I'm glad the fight ended a lot faster than I thought it would. But if it was going to end that fast, it should have just been a comedy bit where the heroes trashed these guys. Charmy gets grabbed because of that idiot bull after all of his fighting experience. Seriously, he had a gun and he knew that. You'd think after he was really close to a Zombot when he was flying, he would have learned to not fly really close to a potential enemy. Even though Charmy has a stinger, Vector surrenders, and Espio thinks to throw a shuriken to free Charmy, which I assume was their plan. But if they were as smart as they should have been, they wouldn't have stopped fighting and gotten in the situation. Vector gives the evidence flash drive to Charmy to fly away with. And eventually Clutch thinks to shoot to trap the heroes in the room. Why didn't he do that earlier? It was obvious they tried to escape. It's a relief that the heroes haven't been made uncharacteristically incompetent to make the bad guys look good. But it still didn't have them being nearly competent enough. So it can still come off like they lost the fight, when really all that happened was Clutch lost the fight, and then trapped them so he could run away from it. With how fast Espio is, why didn't he just run after Clutch so he could escape the room before he could get trapped in it? My time gets wasted with boring dialogue between characters with no special powers. It's so lame that Knight thinks he'd ever be able to help anybody down there. Charmy flies into his room, and Clutch's security guards run into each other. And we're supposed to take this group seriously? Well, Clutch is still being taken seriously. Then he trips. He trips because one of the nameless background characters stuck his leg out. Somehow Clutch didn't anticipate that someone near him would want to stop him from shooting a kid and keep his distance. It's satisfying to see such an awful looking annoying character get comeuppance. But when he was taken dead seriously up until this point, it makes me ask, what are they trying to do? It makes it look like the writers don't know what they're doing with the character. You can have a villain get karma, but this is comedy relief. Imagine if Sigma was treated like this in Worlds Unite. Why did Clutch think he could get Knight to do what he said when he was already being friendly with Charming? It's trying to be this triumphant karmatic ending, but it feels too easy for me to take it seriously. I just have my eyebrows close to my eyes in a skeptical look. This isn't what I would imagine it to be like. I wanted him to be humiliated, sure, but by the Chaotix beating him up. The games let them do that with Eggman, so why wouldn't they do that again? Clutch need to run out of the room to get out of the room, and Espio can run. Espio's supposed to have super speed, so why didn't he catch up with Clutch instantly to beat him up long before this? Some more background characters grab Clutch and get to call him a jerk, justifying that they don't work for him either. That's nice, but one, we'd rather see characters we care about who have been dealing with him earlier do this, and two, this whole I don't work for you isn't as powerful as they think. Like, would you not be doing this if you did work for him? That's not why you should be holding him. Clutch gets sent flying by the wind of a Wispon, and I'm expected to take Jules' dialogue seriously, even though she already told him she didn't want to work with him anymore. And why is she with some OCs I don't know instead of Tangle and Whisper? Then it takes an entire page until the audience is finally presented with the crimes of Clean Sweep. So that was a really boring wait until that point. As usual with this comic, even what would have been a good story in theory is ruined by terrible pacing and stupid characters. It turns out Clutch's company is burying radioactive waste, poisoning the soil of farmland that has water on it, instead of the soil of literally anywhere else in the world. There's so many huge fields and even deserts out there where nobody would witness him burying stuff. And I didn't know his company was even in charge of getting rid of nuclear waste. I thought it was just about recycling Eggman's weapons and robots. At least we're actually getting shown this, so it's not tell don't show. But it would have had more impact if we already knew this. So we'd be like, yeah, finally he's getting exposed for that. The rest of what he exposed them for is stuff we already know. It's both stuff we already know and stuff that anybody could have assumed. Why would Clutch have kept records of his crimes? It's not like it was evidence gathered by other people that he had hidden away. He could have trashed it instead of hiding it if that was the case. He doesn't need to keep this as a keepsake out of pride. It's not like he has Alzheimer's, you know, he's gonna remember what he did. It's just the Starline's diary being exposed thing all over again. Speaking of stupid characters, Clutch is forced to insist that nobody cares about a few sick kids. What sick kids though? There's no mention to kids in particular getting sick. It's just him digging himself deeper. Combine this with his gun use, and he's reminding me of how Fang was written in the reboot and giving me the same skeptical reaction. The character was given black eyes like this, so clearly he was intended to be cool. So why was he suddenly being portrayed as a completely incompetent moron at the very last second? And this is the same person who came up with this character. It's the same person who wrote the issue he first showed up in. But like Adam Bryce Thomas, it doesn't look like she cares about her own character staying consistent, which means she doesn't care at all. He damages a control panel because apparently he has super strength on Amy's level that could have come in handy in all of the issues before this. But apparently he was always meant to be a moron. But like with Starline, nobody called him out on it. All of his earlier stupid moments weren't called out, so they came off as unintentional plot holes of the writer. He does an override of the blimp, and then it gets set to self-destruct mode by Jewel to make her look cool for the first time. But why did someone put a self-destruct mode on it to begin with? There's no failsafe either. She must have done this destructive, dangerous thing to get him to leave. That's the only possible reason that it would be implemented in the first place. To get intruders to leave. There would be a failsafe, it just wouldn't be in the same room so that the intruders couldn't threaten you into using it. He does a few things, and it's only clear what he did when the last panel's shown where the blimp's heading for the surface. Wave asks Alma-chan what that broadcast was about. Did she not hear it? Surge makes fun of Clutch, thinking he's being melodramatic. Mimic then screams because Kate uses water to grab his vehicle. And Surge asks him where he thought he was going, and Lanolin asks him where he was. It makes sense that he didn't bother staying with her because he was planning to betray her. Mimic says Tangle and Whisper knew who the Phantom Rider was. I guess he's just lying and accidentally right. Lanolin's officially gone crazy if she's calling Sonic dangerous over trying to race when he's not allowed to. She's being portrayed like Antoine issue 40, but she's been given no in-universe reason to want to jump at any excuse to imprison Sonic. Internet canon doesn't count. You can try to establish whatever canon you want on the internet with no restrictions. Why is Lanolin reacting as if this is the first time she's found out about this? Tangle made it pretty obvious when she said Lanolin might hurt Sonic. Just picture her as Jeffrey right now, and she'd make more sense. Sonic wouldn't say, "You can do anything you want to me later." He'd know she'd have no chance of doing anything to him, and if that anything involved something as disproportionate as jail somehow, then he wouldn't let himself stay there when Eggman's still a threat. He's not supposed to be kowtowing to authority just because he's a pure good goody two-shoes. Even though Sonic with his super speed might be her only hope to save the day, Lanolin still puts a lot of lives at risk wanting to slap some cuffs on Sonic. Though she could just be relying on Surge to stop Clutch, never mind. She can only get convinced to postpone betraying Sonic, and again it's by an OC instead of a game character. I've never been one to be discriminatory against OCs, but IDW has been the first continuity to constantly put its OCs above the game characters in priority at their expense. Even RG saw Knuckles be the most powerful Guardian ever. And for supposed epic final pair of issues in Arc, it's all focused on OCs, not the characters who are more interesting to watch because they have special powers. Jeff says Sonic owes him a real race, and answers that he already figured out, so he tells his friends to go after him. It's so out of character for her to not hurt him. I thought she was a sadist, and while she has no reason to have a grudge against him, the same can be said about Whisper. It's not like she's being supervised right now by the Diamond Cutters. Who would possibly find out it was her? She wears gloves. There's nobody near her. It's not like she's in a building where there's other people, and so they inevitably discover the body. Kate lampshades that Surge could have had him pulled off his bike so he'd fall. He knows her pretty well. If he's surprised that she didn't do that, why didn't he assume that was what she wanted and do that to him? She says she's just following his plan and Clutch is next. If she's following his plan, why is he surprised then? This issue by Evan Stanley should have been good in theory, but its execution sucked. Clutch isn't supposed to be that stupid. And who cast a magical paralyzing freeze ray in the Chaotix so Espio wouldn't catch up to Clutch after he left the room just fine and instantly beat him up before he could get a chance to make a fool out of himself? If the Chaotix had been created by Evan Stanley, they would have gone to be in the same room as him for that scene. But instead it was nothing but her pet characters being uncharacteristically cool just to prop them up. But the appeal of these characters was never that they were supposed to be cool. So it comes off as trying too hard. Being good at paperwork is impressive, but it's not outright cool in the traditional action series sense. But it wasn't as bad an issue as I thought it'd be, because it's not like the whole fight scene with the Chaotix was just him getting hurt and humiliated repeatedly. I thought the fight would last a lot longer than it did. Instead, all of Clutch's goons were humiliated effortlessly. But still, if the Chaotix was written as competent as they're supposed to be, they would have just beat Clutch up like they did with Eggman.